Good morning everybody, I am here in Aylesbury in Buckinghamshire, southeast England at Wendover Woods, about to start the Centurion Wendover Woods 50 mile. This is an ultra marathon run and it's going to be 99% on the trail and 1% on the road, and the elevation gain in this race is insane, approximately 10,000 feet over the 50 miles, so it's going to be a brutal day, but I'm looking forward to it nevertheless. I've got my race number on, got my tracker beneath my coat here, on my backpack. Let's go to the briefing, get to the start line and run the Wendover Woods Centurion 50 miler.
Yes,
and we're off the Wendover Woods 50. Let's do it, guys. First aid station down, 5.6 miles in now, and already we've had 1,000 feet of elevation gain approximately. It's going to be a pretty brutal day, but it's a lovely scenery and lovely environment to be running in. As you can see, nice weather. This course consists of 5 10-mile laps, so we're going to be doing the same course 5 times essentially. But interestingly enough, the actual area where we're running is only 2 miles squared, but there's so many different iterations and routes of that 2 mile square space that it feels constantly fresh, constantly new and exciting. So yeah, it's going to be a fun day. Onwards, let's carry on. I'm now on lap 2 of this 50 mile run. It took about 1 hour and 58 minutes to get around the first 10 mile loop. I think it's a pretty nice course overall. It's very interesting, diverse terrain, and loads of hills, as you could tell. If I was to pick my favourite half out of the 2 in terms of how easy it felt, if you want to call it that, it would probably be the second half, because there was quite a lot of flats to run along. There were 2 pretty brutal hills in the second half, so my boys got those to look forward to come the end of each loop. Just left the aid station, halfway through the second loop. I'm about 16 miles in now. Feeling okay still. I'm on relatively thin ice today, I feel, because about 3 weeks ago when I ran a 25-mile run on my birthday, I unfortunately sustained quite a nasty calf injury to my left leg, and ever since I haven't really been running at all. I've done quite a lot of cycling during the recovery period. Yeah, and today I would say my leg is about 20% still painful and still injured. So I'm taking it nice and relaxed today. Don't want to go overboard and injure myself, but touch wood at the moment, it seems to be going relatively smooth. So I'll just carry on rolling with it for now. So this is one of the brutal climbs in the second half of the 10-mile loop. It's probably quite a few hundred feet. It just goes on and on and on. It's very steep, very long. Yeah, it's just a prime example of how tricky this course can be. It's very hilly, onwards and upwards. So I've just finished the second loop and I'm now into the third loop. I'm about 4 hours and 20 minutes in. It's already starting to get a little bit dark. The organiser said during the briefing that it would get dark at about 4:30, but because obviously we're in the woods, it's very enclosed, it'll probably happen a lot sooner for us. And I'm already starting to see signs of it getting slightly darker now. I think it's only about 2 o'clock if I'm not mistaken. What time is it? Yeah, 10 to 2. It's gonna get dark very soon. I'm at 24 miles in, halfway through the third lap almost, and to be totally honest with you guys, this is definitely a low point in the race for me. I'm feeling just pretty done in already, to be honest. My calf's hurting a little bit, not too bad, but just feel pretty knackered. And I wonder if it's because the lack of training I've been doing in the last 3.5 weeks or so due to injury. But I think I'll be able to carry on, and I will carry on. You know, almost over the halfway point. Then it's just a kind of mind game to get over that last half of the third lap, and we've got 2 more laps to go. Yeah, let's carry on. Okay, I can see the main hub aid station where we started. That is lap 3 finished. I feel a little bit better now from my you know, pretty grim spell earlier on. It wasn't looking very good for me, but yeah, it looks like it's now going to turn tonight very shortly. As you can see, it's getting dark already. I think it's just about to turn 4. If not, it has just turned 4. So the head torches will be out very shortly, and maybe the coke is getting a little bit chilly as well. We are now into the night section. As you can see, the head torch has come out. Visibility is extremely reduced right now, and I think I'm the only person for a good while in front and behind, so I'm on my own in the dark here. A little bit of a sub story for you there, The occasional ridiculously fast elite runner will come past me though, lapping me of course, because I'm on lap 4 and they are most certainly on lap 5. Very impressive. But yeah, it's definitely a unique challenge running in the dark, especially in the woods where you know, you can trip over very easily on a root vine or some kind of a rock. But we'll carry on, we'll grin and bear it, and we'll get this race done. And up we go. We're doing the really steep hill with the ropes to the side again in the pitch black darkness. And when I say pitch black, I mean pitch black. When I was trying to get a different setting on my head torch just then, I accidentally turned it off, and you literally cannot see anything until there's a little light. It's crazy. So yeah, very reduced visibility at the moment condition wise, but I'm happy with progress at the moment. You know, getting through, haven't stopped at all really. Only at the main aid station at the start. Where am I going? So yeah, I'll just keep on keeping on. It's just been a crazy run honestly so far. Okay, I can see in front of me the main aid station, the place where we started, which means I've completed my 4th lap. There's only one more remaining. We started that lap, I'd say, with a quarter of it being daylight, but then obviously it changed to night time. This is going to be probably the first and only lap in the whole race I'm going to do in complete darkness. So that's going to be good fun. I'm going to bring another head torch with me. I've got one in my bag, but I want to spare one in my pockets just so I can quickly access it, just in case this goes. Got to be prepared for these things. So yeah, let's get some food, get some water, tailwind, get back on the road to finish this thing. And there we have it. 12 hours and 5 minutes after setting off, I am back to the main camp, which is just over there. You probably can't see anything. That was a monstrous run, without a doubt. One of the hardest ultras I've done. You know, one of the hardest runs I've ever done. The elevation gain in that, the terrain in that, the fact that you've got to run a massive chunk of it at night with the head torches on, you know, none of that is to be underestimated. That was a brutal course, and fair play to anybody that finishes it, because that really tested me, and I was close to pulling out at one point, you know, and I had that low in the first half of the race. That was hard, but I'm so happy to have finished. All that's left to do is to get my finishers medal, my t-shirt, thank you, and then I will be off on my way. I'm going to do a debrief at the end of this video, so stick around and I'll share my thoughts with you on this absolute beast of a race. And there we have it, the Wendover Woods 50-mile Ultramarathon 2022 done. Stop the watch, that was a blast. Hello everyone, it is a couple of days after the Wendover Woods 50-mile Ultramarathon, and I wanted to share a few thoughts about the race from my perspective. This was, as I alluded to during the rest of the video, an absolutely brutal run through some fantastic and beautiful scenery in the Wendover woodland. It was a really nice course, fantastically thought out, even though it was a relatively small area we were running in. It was 2 miles squared according to the Centurion organisers during the briefing. It was very intricately done, and we did so many iterations and so many different variations of that particular area that the course stayed fresh despite it being 5 10-mile loops during the race. With the course being so technical and filled with steep ascents, descents, tricky terrain, roots on the floor, I'm still pretty sore now, but to be honest with you, I am pretty happy that I actually was able to finish this race because, like I mentioned earlier on in the video, I went into this race with an injury that I sustained about 3 weeks ago, and up until the point of actually starting on the race day start line, I hadn't actually ran at all, barring 2 miles about 2 weeks ago. So I was very happy to be able to start the race, let alone finish it, so that was a bonus. Also, it was fantastic to meet loads of other runners on the course as we went through the 5 loops. Everyone was in high spirits, and then during the night section when we were all in a pretty tough situation, you know, having to navigate this really tricky woodland with loads of roots, vines, rocks on the floor, which could easily trip you up at any moment. I myself tripped up about 3 times, unfortunately. Having everyone there, motivating each other on, just having a little bit of general chit chat was really good, you know, just to remind you that you're not in it alone and everyone else is going through this same slog together. So yeah, it was fantastic to meet a load of people out there. In terms of what I think went well for the race for me personally, I was able to maintain a running pace throughout all the running sections. And what I mean by that is where you could actually run it and there wasn't a ridiculously steep climb, I was running, albeit not very fast the whole time, but I was still running. I didn't actually do much walking at all. I think despite this being such a technically challenging course with tons of ascent and descents, you know, remember there's about 10,000 feet of elevation gain and ascent in this 150-mile race. It's a nice course because it kind of dictates to you what you need to be doing at certain times, so you're not tempted to go running off, you know, really early on in the race. If there's a massive steep section, you have to literally stop because some of those climbs were just unrunnable. They were very, very steep. So it's good that you're kind of being regulated pace-wise by the course to some degree. Secondly, I was happy with my nutrition throughout the race. I've now got into a good workflow in terms of what I'm going to be eating and when. For me, during my ultramarathons, I have stuck to a very simple but effective plan for me of downing energy gels. I usually use high 5 energy gels, which are my go-to staple during training and during the actual race days themselves. Centurion on the day had a great selection of goo energy gels, which are very calorie heavy, got a decent amount of electrolytes in and some caffeine, some of them. I had quite a few of those as well, and the energy gels kept me going. Personally, I can't really do solid foods during these races, but I am able to slam the energy gels, which is a little bit gross sometimes, but you know, you've got to get the nutrition in, otherwise you will blow up, as I have found out in the past. Thirdly, I was quite happy with my gear selections throughout the race. So obviously, even though you have a mandatory kit list from Centurion that you are unable to start the race without, I selected a decent pair of running shoes for this race. I used my Hoka Speedgoat 3s, I believe. In the past, during the North Downs Way 100 and a 100-mile ultra run, I used some very inappropriate, hard, rigid shoes that were more suited to wet running in wintry conditions, and needless to say, my feet were destroyed by mile 40, let alone mile 70, miles 80. The Hoka Speedgoats were fantastic for this terrain, and I only had one small blister. So, you know, that's a testament to itself there. Also, I had a spare head torch in my pocket rather than having it in my bag because I just had a little feeling going into loop 5 that my head torch on the top of my head would go out. And lo and behold, when I got to the last aid station at about 45 miles in, my head torch just completely went out of battery. And rather than having to faff around, you know, getting the pack off, I had one already on me in my pocket, so I quickly got that out, chucked it on my head and carried on going. So yeah, I thought that was a little bit of rare foresight from me there and a little bit of luck, to be honest with you. In terms of what I think didn't go so well for me on race day, obviously my performance wasn't as good as it could have been. So I was injured in the lead up to race day. I hadn't really done any training in terms of running. I was cycling on the bike for quite a lot of that time just to keep a decent level of fitness up to the best of my ability. However, I didn't do enough cycling. Needless to say, my fitness on race day was nowhere near what it really should have been. I was really struggling come midway through the 3rd lap, and you know, I didn't get the fastest time in the world. I finished at about 12 hours and 5 minutes. However, I was just glad to finish at the end of the day because I was thinking that I probably would have had to have pulled out a couple of days before the race. So finishing is a bonus to me. Secondly, I wasn't very pleased with my mental game during this race. So come the middle of the third lap, I was in a pretty bad way, physically and mentally. I mean, I was feeling pretty awful just because of my lower levels of fitness. My legs were starting to hurt, and my left leg, where the calf had been injured, was starting to play up. However, my mental game wasn't really doing me any favours. I was, looking at the negatives of the situation, constantly trying to think of stories to justify why I did not finish. In hindsight, I probably could have used the course to my advantage a little bit more to get me through those tricky mental moments. So this course has a ton of landmarks that I could have used to set myself mini goals rather than thinking about, oh, I've got to finish this 10-mile loop by X time before the cut-off. So for example, on this course, there's the Gruffalo statue, which is at the start. There's a steep hill down to some power lines and an open field. They're in the first half of the loop. In the second half of the loop, you could use things like the long slog. There's a long road going down to a climb called the Snake. There's another climb called Gnarking around, I think it's called. They're two big landmarks as well. Had I used those landmarks to set as my mini goals rather than thinking about the whole loop as a mini goal, I probably would have been more motivated and in a more positive headspace compared to the way I was in during that third loop. But I'm glad that my spirits picked up come loop 4, and by loop 5 I was in a pretty comfortable position and I just grinned a bed it and got the course done. So I feel a little bit of learning for me there for future looped events like this. Overall, I was very pleased to have finished this race. This was a fantastic event from Centurion. As always, the volunteers from Centurion, absolutely fantastic. You cannot fault them one bit. Always trying to help you out with whatever they can. And this year for me, well, during this race, this was a first at the aid station at Hale Lane, which is the one on the course itself. The volunteers got some fish and chips from a fish and chip shop nearby. So we as the runners were treated to some lovely chips, which were really nice during the race. I'll put a link to the results page from the Centurion website and a link to my Strava performance on the day in the description of this video. Thanks very much for watching. I've been Craig. Try new things, try being more. I'll see you in the next video.